Hey, what's up, everyone? We're back with another episode of Unfucking Your CX. I am your host, Zack Hamilton, and I am extremely excited about today's conversation. One, just because we've had many pub rants about CX in general, but a former colleague of mine and James, we teamed up for a little over a year or so. And James, we've had some spicy conversations about the state of CX, kind of how practitioners think about it today. And so glad you could come on, but welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you, Zach. And yeah, look, thanks for having me on. Reflect on our spicy, disruptive conversations as previous colleagues very favourably. So I was delighted to be invited on to the podcast.
Yeah, it just reminds me of some of the conversations that we had over beers where, things just about all brands care about are surveys. All they really care about is their dashboards, getting a specific number. And like you, both of us being practitioners, where we did this in industry before we jumped to the tech side. So when you think about like today's state of CX, is it ever going to get better?
Well, I mean, it has to, right? And I think one of the biggest disappointments, as you say, both you and I, have cut our teeth, a enterprise side, if you like, organization side, but also have seen, what's behind the curtain with vendors and agencies as well, and really just the potential, the missed potential, frankly, over the last 10 to 15 years is what's so upsetting. You and I share very similar views on NPS, and I'm sure we're going to take a whack at that, in detail at some point later in the podcast. But I was originally very fond of NPS. I was in industry, in enterprise, a large global insurer, 20 billion revenue. And NPS was a major force for the customer focus and orientation to begin with. For the very first time, executive teams, even CFOs were including sort of these customer measures within their governance and within their dashboards. So I really benefited from that sort of wave of optimism. But that momentum quite quickly faded. And really my perception of the industry now is that it has become a function for data and reporting, frankly, within organizations. And that's disappointing. And I think we can do better.
Yeah, I know I agree with you. I know this isn't the topic for today, which I'm excited to get into the topic, but I'm curious your thoughts, right? When you think about, the background of CX practitioners, most people don't just go and fall into leading customer experience. I didn't, you didn't, right? That's not what we went to school for or studied. But ultimately, we kind of fell into that specific role. And now more than ever, I find that insights leaders are more and more leading the role. And do you think that is one of the foundational reasons that CX has just kind of been regarded as a insights survey management program?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great observation. I think you can't really tell this story or have a conversation about this story without recognizing the beginnings of the categories, and they are, marketing, data, analytical type beginnings. So it's not surprising that that's where we go. But this is where I claim missed opportunity. That we haven't moved beyond that, I would say. The industry for years has been pumping out maturity models, one after another, various things, but all broadly describing the process of gathering information, analysing it, and then doing something with it. The industry claims to be a closed loop system, but is rather daringly silent on the part of the value chain which delivers the value. And we all know why that is, because these maturity models are sold and pushed by organizations that are trying to sell you surveys and dashboards. They're not trying to sell you change management solutions. And so therefore the discipline is, again, as I say, rather daringly silent on the actual bit that matters, which is the delivering of the value.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And I think that leads us to, you and I've had so many different kind of conversations about different topics, but there was one specific topic that you really wanted to unfuck today. So what is that?
Well, I mean, it is that CX as a value stream. It is the rather urgent, I would say, departure from where the vast majority of programs that I encounter are, which is to say data and reporting capabilities, and instead to structure the activity and the work, firstly to be future proof, because AI is here already, and there's more coming. If you're doing anything that remotely resembles analytics and reporting, you might expect to be challenged in the not too distant future for other points of value within your role. And so that is the first sort of top tip. It is to try and to act with as much agility as possible. Don't deliberately reference sort of agile or scale agile. I sort of mean agility with a small a, to be flexible and to be nimble, and to have a relationship, frankly, with your technology vendor that enables flexibility, agility, and what that enables you then for you to do as a CX program is to go where the fires are, right? So not be buried in a 3-year program of work to add 30 NPS scores across 30 journeys, but instead to have a pipeline of what has come up in the last quarter's worth of reporting. Are we struggling for revenue? Are we struggling for conversions? Are there efficiency challenges? Are there customer advocacy challenges with certain products in certain regions? The CX team should be part of that world. They should be all over that conversation, helping out where they can. Frankly, if your CX team is not doing that already, then I think you're going to get left behind once AI starts doing parts of the job that are repetitive.
Yeah, I love this topic. So the topic of shifting from, and the topic that you're unfucking is shifting from CX as a program or CX as an initiative, which you see a lot of times still of, hey, this is initiative, which means from an initiative perspective, we're going to roll it out. It's very time-based and it's going to end to, to what you're talking about now, which is CX is the value stream, right? And what I loved what you kind of broke down there very quickly was, and I just had this conversation with an e-commerce D2C CEO yesterday, which was, look, if your revenue's down month over month or quarter over quarter, there's probably 2 or 3 root causes for that when it comes to the customer experience. And ultimately, it's probably not going to be something that's like this big, sexy project. It's probably actually 2 or 3 just very little redesigns or enhancements that need to be done, and they're probably going to get done very, very, very quickly. It's the unsexy part of it, and it's going to deliver them millions of dollars, right? So how do you get executives to be thinking about, you're not always going to be nailing these like home runs, but as a value system, a lot of times it's just, I'm talking in American terms now, American baseball, like, but a lot of times it might just be singles and doubles.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And in fact, this sort of leads on to my second sort of player tip, really, and that is, and this is a mistake that I've made in the past, is engagement is continuous activity. It's not a discrete exercise, once a year or twice a year, or frankly, whenever something's on fire. We need to be maintaining those relationships, both upstream and downstream, throughout the whole business on a regular cadence. Because as you and I know, the priorities are changing almost overnight. And frankly, unless CX is always a horizontal. There is no P&L. There are no headlines being made for you. CX needs to get its elbows and create its own headlines. So player tip number 2, CX is a PR campaign, firstly, and certainly internally, and a shared story. And frankly, it's on the practitioners to be pushing these business-wide engagements, and not just sit around waiting to be asked to fill in, the next governance.
Yeah, you're spot on there, right? I love your bit around the headlines and where CX practitioners have to be creating their own headlines, because no one's going to create them for them. Because quite frankly, people cannot connect the dots between what you might be hearing from your customers and the impact that it's going to have on the P&L. You and I have talked about that so many times. And so it's like, what are your headlines or what are your sound bites that you're going to create? And to your point, go influence the broader organization, because you don't have, like, no one reports to you, right? You got to influence through, you have to win through influence versus winning through accountability. And I think that's what practitioners struggle with on that second point.
Yeah, exactly. It sort of gets back to your point at the beginning, Zach, where we haven't really changed enormously the configuration of skills within these programs or within these areas, and we're certainly not recruiting for anything other than data and analytics normally. And so you might say that proactive PR campaigns are not necessarily the what you'd expect analysts to be doing each day. And so if you're not going to recruit for the next generation of CX practitioners, then you as a leader need to be one yourself, and to be reporting on and selling the benefits of the big projects, the boulders, if you like, the small change initiatives, but critically their associated value outcomes to the business, because this is the language of the business at large. And so when CX practitioners come out and are talking again in terms of NPS, or trying to sell people onto an NPS broadcast or working session, you have to be prepared to look a bit silly, because this is not what people are talking about.
Yeah, spot on. I don't think I could say it any better. And I think there's a lot of skill sets. I mean, that could probably be another topic that we just unfuck on its own, right? But to your point, I think it also kind of feeds into kind of the skill sets really around AI, and how to take advantage of it. And I think it kind of leads us to your third player tip.
Yes. The third player tip, it's a quick one. If you are, and he's on that AI point, I've never seen something disruption, should I say, accelerate quite so quickly as AI. And if you're a CX practitioner, I would say of any grade, I'm probably giving this advice to myself as much as to your audience. Like, if you're a CX practitioner of any grade and you're not already closely connected with the people in your organization, in your network, who are looking at AI, they're looking at AI enablement, they're looking at automation for businesses, RPA, machine learning, then make that your very next phone call. Understand where they believe the low-hanging fruit is, and make sure you can articulate the value of your CX activities beyond the data and beyond the reporting.
I think you're spot on there. It's one of the things that I've been trying to do a lot of learning around just myself about AI and the different impacts it's going to have, not just on business, but to your point, within our specific discipline. I think it has significant disruptions. And I think the one I started to get into a debate about a couple weeks ago is I don't really need a text analytics model anymore. Quite frankly, like, they're old, they're dusty, they're hard to set up and maintain. Quite frankly, let me just build an ask anything model on LLM, right? And let it tell me the 2 to 3 things that are causing impact to top line revenue.
Yeah, and if just to digress on that point before we close, again, I would list sort of unstructured data, if you like, so text analytics, speech analytics, as another really sort of missed opportunity, I think, for the CX industry. I mean, I as a consumer of technology, and about the time when things like voice and text analytics came out, I was crying out for something that would make sense to a business user. As good as sentiment analysis is, just a wall of colours and numbers against 40 various themes might be great for an analyst, but it makes no sense whatsoever to a business user. And CX really as a discipline hasn't evolved from that. And I think what that's done is left the door open to threat, frankly, from channel providers. So Genesis, eGain, the people who actually own the communication data, I think are already doing a much better job of understanding unstructured data and the links to behaviour than traditional CX. So if I was allowed the fourth player tip, it would be go and see what your channel providers are doing and adopt it into your program.
Three player tips and one bonus, James. It wouldn't be a conversation with you if it wasn't like that. As we close it out here, James, you are on the forefront of AI and CX. So if our listeners want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, thanks, Dad. They can find me on LinkedIn, James Roberts Elliott, and it'd be great to chat.
Yeah, very cool. James, thanks for joining me, and look forward to our next chat.
Thanks.